days. So I thought I would do the next in my live videos on Facebook here. And this is probably one of three that will have the most meaning for people. So the ones I've done already have been a bit of my background, a bit of why I do what I do. And this is more to do with what I do. So I guess the heading for this one would be, what does a celebrant do and why might you choose to use one? Fairly key, really. So when I'm doing my talks generally, this is the point where some people have had an experience of working with a celebrant or seeing a celebrant-led ceremony. Quite a lot of people haven't, and they may not have come across the word celebrant either. So this is the one where I think actually I'll be a bit more focused on what it is they actually do and what my contribution to your day is. I'm going to separate it out into three different lives. So the first one, this one, will be focused on weddings or vow renewals or commitment ceremonies, so those three. Then I'll do one about funerals, and I'll do one about naming ceremonies as well, because each of them is different. And if you're thinking about a funeral, then you don't want to be talking weddings, and vice versa. So what do I do, and where do I do it, and why might you want to use me? As you may remember from my previous live videos, I was a registrar in my former life, so about 4 or 5 years ago. I was the relief registrar doing weekend weddings, and I loved doing it, but was looking for something a bit different. And that's the point where I came across the word celebrant and the role of a celebrant. I think up to that point, I would have been like most other people and had no idea that such a role existed, or that what the difference was that they could do. So I create and I conduct unique weddings, funerals. Oh, here we go. See, it comes out as a spiel. I create and I conduct unique wedding ceremonies, vow renewal ceremonies, commitment ceremonies. So those are three different ways that you can show your commitment to another person, same sex, different sex, multi-amorous, whatever is right for you, with your family, with your friends. One of the major things that is a difference, I think, is that I can do ceremonies anywhere. So if you have a religious faith and you would like the whole of the content of your wedding ceremony to be based in that religious faith, then that is definitely the way that you would go. That would definitely be the right route for you. So you'd be in a church, or you'd be, in another place of worship, and that's absolutely brilliant. If you're not, then the option that most people think that they have is a register office, or nowadays a licensed venue that the registrars will come out to. And of course, that is definitely an option. What you get there, because they're limited by restrictions that are created by the government, is a non-religious ceremony that can't have any links to anything that has a religious background. So things, something that was a hymn or is traditionally a hymn, but actually is used for something else now, like Calan Lan, I guess, or like Guide Me O, which if you're a Welsh rugby fanatic, you'd know all very well and good, is a major hymn, major song there at rugby matches these days for Wales. Then you wouldn't be able to use it. Also, you can't have any readings or any poetry that has a religious content to it either. They're restricted on the wording, so the legal wording of the vows that you use is very specific, and that's why they're very particular about you having to say them absolutely exactly at the point that you do it. That is the point that you're making your commitment, is the exchange of the vows, not the signing of the register, even though most people seem to feel that it's the signing of the register that is the point where you make your legal commitment. It is actually the words that you're saying. You have to be at a legal venue, a licensed venue, and the definition of that is that it must, they pay the county council for being licensed through the registration service, and they must have 3 walls and a ceiling. I can see that over the years, this is getting stretched in lots of different directions. So you get bandstands, which to my mind have no walls, that are being licensed. You get quasi outside spaces, so kind of gazebos that are becoming licensed. So those rules are getting stretched, if you like, by the registration services across the country, because they can see that there's a desire from people to be able to have something a bit more unusual, a bit more personal to them, something that they feel is not what everybody else is having. So I guess one of the major reasons for using a celebrant is that you have a completely unique ceremony. Having said that, I'm going to speak for myself. I can't speak for other celebrants. I can't speak for what they do. So everything that I'm talking about is what I do. I create a new, unique perfectly independent, bespoke ceremony for each couple that I work with. Words aren't copied and pasted. It's not about, oh, this is the order, you've got to have things. I work with each couple to design a ceremony that really reflects them. And that can be as outlandishly different or as traditional as people feel. So quite often it'll be, well, we don't want to go too far away from the norm, but we'd like a bit more of us in there. We'd like a bit more of our story to be there. We'd like people to understand why it's important for us to get married. And that's the way that we would do it. I had one couple that the only reason they were booking me was that they couldn't get the registrars at the time of day that they wanted. So we worked very closely to be similar to what a registrar would do, so that their guests would know no different. They were really concerned that people might not think it was a proper wedding ceremony. But we put a bit more flavour of them in there, so that actually it was a lovely ceremony. And nobody recognised the fact that I didn't have another person with me sitting at the table behind me writing all the way through the ceremony. Nobody thought for 2 seconds that it was anything other than a beautiful ceremony. And the number of people that came up afterwards and were commenting on the fact they'd never been to one like this before, even though it was actually quite similar to what a registrar might have done. I have to say, personally, there are some poems and readings I find impossible to use now because I used them so many times over the four and a half years that I was a registrar. They formed the basis of the ceremonies that we were doing at that point. So even though they're lovely poems, I find I can't use them because it takes me back. I also will never wear a jacket. Again, as a registrar, it was compulsory. We had to wear a jacket. That was the kind of formal look that we had to have. So nowadays, if you ask me to, then I'd wear a jacket. But for the most part, by choice, I don't. I dress informally, smartly. I dress as a wedding guest might be, I suppose, so that I'm part of the way that you're celebrating your day. I do have a steampunk side of my business, so actually I can go that way as well, and I can be dressed in full steampunk if you'd like me to, or effectively anything else you fancy. So why might you want to use a celebrant? You've got somebody, actually, when you meet me, you know that it's going to be me that's doing the ceremony on the day. So I'm the one that stands up at the front. I'm the one that says all the lines, all the words, that creates the atmosphere for you with your guests. So quite often people will say, we want a really informal, a relaxed ceremony. We want it to be real fun for people. We don't want it to feel too formal and as if people are just there to watch. We want them to be able to feel that they're involved and they're part of the day, that they're important to us. There's a good reason why they're there. And that's normally part of the ceremonies that I create, so that there's an atmosphere of real happiness and joy, real love, if you like, that everybody is part of. And involved with. And sometimes that's a bit of banter between me and them. Sometimes it's because of the story that I'm telling. Sometimes it's more practical, so they may be directly involved. There's certainly some ceremonies where each person there has written something that's then read out or combined as part of the ceremony, that everybody signed something that we then use as part of the ceremony. Thumbprint trees you may have come across at some point already, so that can be a way of people actively being involved in what's going on. Hi Jane, lovely to see you. That's the first time I've actually been able to read somebody sending me a comment, so obviously I can do a bit better with my screen rather than on my phone. So I think it's a lot of it is to do with the atmosphere that you want people to get from the day, and you want it to be something that will stay in people's minds, something that stays as being something different. I don't know about you, but certainly at the year that I got married, I was invited to so many weddings. We went to so many weddings. And there comes a point where it feels like you can kind of say the words, you know what's coming up next. And to be able to do something that people aren't expecting, they don't know what's coming next. They're led through, if you like, a journey of discovery about your relationship, your commitment to each other, the way you want to celebrate your love for each other. I think that's really important. So you don't have to be at a licensed venue if you're working with me. You can be. So any licensed venue should be absolutely fine with having a celebrant there, but you don't have to be. So I can do a ceremony up at the top of a mountain. I can do it up a tree if you really want one. I can do it in your back garden. I can do it in the village hall, more or less anywhere you can think of, really. And because of that, it gives you flexibility about everything else that you have within your wedding as well. So you can have a festival theme outside, that's not a problem at all, because your ceremony is geared that way as well. So all the food can be that way, the way you dress can be that way. Everything that you want to do is influenced by where you hold your ceremony, what kind of ceremony you hold. But quite often people don't think about it because they don't know. So they go one of two routes and kind of don't realize they've got another option. Um, so, okay, so you can go anywhere. You can go at any time of day. So if you have a particular point in the day that's really important to you, you'd like to have a wedding that is backdrop by a sunset. There have been some fantastic sunsets around recently. Then we can do that. If you want to do a midnight wedding because it's October the 31st and you're really keen on Halloween, we can do that. If you can do it on New Year's Eve if you really want to, going into New Year's Day. There's no restriction, and there's no, from my perspective, there's no kind of like, oh, well, you do it, and we're doing a late session, so therefore I'm going to charge you more. It's not about that. You book me for whatever point in the day you need me, and that's when we do your ceremony, because it's about you. So I spend time with the couples to get to know you, to get to know what it is that you want, get to understand your relationship and the way that you behave with each other, to understand what's important to you and what you would like to be there as part of your ceremony. I work with you to create vows that have meaning for you. So rather than, I don't know if you've looked at a register office ceremony, you tend to have three options on vows. So one will be very quick, one will be very flowery and poetic, and the other will be kind of not quite sure, a bit in the middle. So they're trying to cater for how nervous people get, really, because quite often people are concerned about saying those words. And they're lovely, but they're very general. So there's nothing personal to you in those vows. So I work with couples to create vows that have meaning for them. And sometimes there can be laughter within that as well, because it may be that you are committing to pick up the bathroom towel whenever you have a bath or a shower. Whatever it is that's important to you to have in your vows, and ones that ring true to you and things that you will carry forward. This is the basis of your married life together. The vows and the commitment that you make on your wedding day should form the basis of your life together from that point onwards. And they should be the things you refer back to at times when it's not so easy. Because marriage isn't easy. You'll have times when it's a bit more of a struggle, when you get on each other's nerves, or when finances are tight, or you're not agreeing about the direction you want to go. That's when you go back to your marriage vows and actually kind of go, oh, that's what we were saying to each other. That's why we were doing this. And that's the commitment that we made. And I think that's a fantastic way to be taking your marriage really seriously. Your wedding vows are really important. But quite often it's kind of like, oh God, I don't want to be saying too much. I don't want to be the centre of attention. So we work together to create vows that you're comfortable saying in whatever format. And there are several different formats that we can do. So some of which you'll be saying more, some you'll be saying less. But actually all the words that are there are words that are relevant to you. There are lots of different meanings about love, the different ways that people meet and different ways that their relationships develop. And I like to give that some space. That's your story, that's what's brought you together, and that's part of the direction that you're going to go in. So I think it's great to be able to give some time to your background, if you like, your story. Hang on a sec while I have a quick drink of coffee. I think the other thing that for me is really important that I do is that there are lots of different rituals that can be included by a celebrant that can't be included by a registrar. So these include things like hand fasting, which you may possibly have heard of. It's the tying together, the binding together of the couple's hands. They're knotted together but with ribbons or cords, so that's where tying the knot came from. And that's a really ancient pagan form of marriage commitment. Works perfectly beautifully in a modern ceremony and gives you a real connection with your environment and with nature and with the powers of the universe, if you like. So it's a fantastic way of getting a spiritual side to it and of involving some or all of your guests, because it can be, I certainly did a fantastic vow renewal at the top of a mountain where each of the guests had chosen a colour ribbon and they did the binding. So as we were going through it, I said the words and they were doing the binding with the couple. So everyone was actively involved in what was going on. And that's a beautiful way of encouraging that commitment from other people, if you like. I also do things like unity sand ceremony or the unity candle ceremony. So both of those are ways of bringing together two things to create something better and stronger together that you can't then separate. So there's a whole range of different ones that can be done. Um, and I love the opportunity that people have got to come across one that they like, and then we work it together to make it fit them. So it's not it's not a cut and paste job. It's, oh, I fancy hand fasting. I like what it stands for. Now let's make it fit for you. Let's make it really relevant to you, to your wedding day, to your commitment and your marriage and your relationship with each other. So I think that is a unique offer, if you like. And if there's not one there that you fancy, but you'd like to have a ritual as part of your ceremony, we can create one. That's absolutely fine. Just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done for you. You know, you're the center of your day. So whatever is right for you, we can make work, absolutely. So I think it's the personal options you've got that come with the Celebrant. And I'm a stage manager by trade. That was my background. That was what I started off doing. So that kind of equates to an event manager if you're outside the theatre. So I'm there as well to make sure that your day runs smoothly. I'm sure others may not do it, but for me, I arrive in plenty of time, normally a couple of hours before the ceremony. I go and check everything is running smoothly, that there's no hold-ups. If there are any problems, I'm there to help sort them out. And I make sure everybody is calm and ready for what's coming ahead. You know, everybody knows what's going on. Everybody is clear about what their role is, what they can do, what they can't do, how we're going to work it. So I work together with every other professional you've got on your day. I carry it through after the ceremony. So obviously the ceremony, I'm there at the front, in theory, controlling what's going on, working with you to have the day of your dreams. And then I stay and work with the photographers afterwards, because, you know, somebody needs to be holding your drinks or spreading your dress, or, you know, just keeping the crowds away, or just getting the people all together. And your photographer's got a lot in their hands, so I tend to work with them if they like me to, so that you get the best possible pictures you can get. And again, in a nice, relaxed manner and in the way that you want them. And I'll stay there until I know for certain that you don't need me anymore. So quite often my couples will be DIY couples. So they won't necessarily be at a venue that's got a wedding planner there as well. So I'll make sure that they get into the food and that goes well, and that's all, you know, is going through smoothly before I think about leaving. So it depends very much on what's right for you, how long I stay, what's needed by you. So there's one lovely couple that their particular caterer wasn't very used to doing weddings, so wasn't going to do the coordination of the tables coming out. So it was going to be a free-for-all of everybody coming out to try and get the food at the same time. So I kind of took that on, and we did that together, so that actually everybody got fed, but they got through quickly, and nobody was standing outside in the baking sun, because it was a really sunny day that day, waiting to get their food and getting disgruntled. And then nobody had put the cake out, so I made sure that I did that. So it's just keeping an overview, if you like, on what's going on, and working with your other professionals to make sure that it runs smoothly for you. It's tricky, isn't it? For me, I was very lucky, I suppose. At the point where I got married, because I was having a Buddhist wedding ceremony, I had to have two separate ceremonies. So I did my legal ceremony 6 weeks before we had our wedding day, so our Buddhist wedding ceremony. And it was great. I actually enjoyed doing the legal side of it. It was lovely. We went out and had a great eat as much as you like Chinese afterwards. The ceremony was conducted by a friend of my husband, so that made it a bit personal. And it was lovely to be saying those things to each other. But our wedding day was a separate day, was a completely separate thing. And that is what our relationship is grounded on. And that was the day that marks the start of our married life together. So for me, it wasn't a big step. I kind of understood that it's quite possible to do the admin, get that out of the way, and then have the day that I really wanted. And that's how I see the role of a celebrant. You know, so registrars will do the admin. They'll get the legal side done, and then we can do whatever you want, wherever you want it, including whatever you want. And the whole focus then is on you. I think I'm going to leave it there for now. I'll probably do another live, I think, talking a bit more about some of the rituals and how those work. But I'm always up for questions. I'm always happy to talk about weddings. So if any of you have anything that you'd like to ask me, just ask away and I will answer as fully as I possibly can. But it's certainly worth considering if you've just got engaged or if you're starting to plan your wedding day. Think about what kind of ceremony you want before you embark on anything else, because that's the heart of your day. And if you want to know if a celebrant's for you, come and have a chat with me. Have a chat online, have a chat on my Facebook page, though Create Ceremonies or Jane Greyer, either which way. Have a chat at any of the wedding fairs that I go to. Please, please, please have a chat before you make a decision. Then make the decision that's right for you. Okay, so that's Jane Greyer of Create Ceremonies. Hope you have a great rest of the afternoon. Take care.